Hey guys, and welcome to the 16th lesson in this series. And today we're going to be building a currency converter, and we'll be getting our rates from the Bank of Canada website. We'll manipulate the file that we get, which would be a CSV file, in order to get the rates on our program. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing we'd want to do is, as usual, we'll import our sys module. Then we're going to use the built-in Python networking module, which is the URL library. So we're going to say from URL, and we're going to use the request module, but we're going to import the URL open function. All right. So the URL open would let it be possible for us to pull the file from the website. And then we're going to import our decimal module. And then last but not least, we'll be importing our Qt widgets module. And we'll import all. So the first thing that we're gonna do again is to create our class form. And we'll be inheriting from our Q dialog class. And we're gonna define our init statement again. And this time we're gonna just set the parent to none. And then we'll get the parent argument from our superclass. We'll say super dot init, and we'll get the parent from that. Okay. All right. So stuff that we're gonna need. We're gonna want to know the date that we pull this rates for. So if the rates were updated today, then you will see today's date. If we're getting rates from yesterday, then we'll see yesterday's date. So we're gonna actually get that from a function that we're gonna create in a few. So for now, we will say self, and we'll call the function that we're gonna do get method, or get data. Yeah. Okay. The next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna need a label also. So let's say date label equal Q label, and we're gonna use the date as that label. All right, so whatever we get here, that's what we're gonna put into our label. Okay, so we are going to need some combo boxes, so we can select which currency we want to convert to the other currency. So we're gonna need two of these boxes. We're gonna need a from, and we're gonna need a to box. Okay, so let's do just that. So self dot from combo box, and we're going to use a combo box from PyQt. So Q combo box, and then we're going to say self. Hold on, let's not put that in yet, so we can see if our program runs fine. So we are also going to need a spin box. So let's say self dot from spin box. equals Q, and this would be a double spin box. So the double just mean that it accepts doubles, similar to floats. And we're gonna set the range for this. So self from dot spin box, and we're gonna set a range of let's see 0.01. So basically alright, so that's 1 cent, and we will go up to around 10 million. Alright, so that's be our range. You can tweak this if you like. You don't have to put it to 10 million. You can even put it to 100 million if persons are interested in those figures. So yeah, that's just there for now. Alright, and we're gonna set a default value. So once a program pop up, this would be the value that would be in that section. So we're gonna set a value of 1, so $1. Alright, then we're gonna have a to combo box. So self dot to, and this gonna also equal a Q combo box. And then we're gonna have a to label. So whatever the exchange, whatever we get for our answer, this is gonna go into the to label, but we're gonna default it from the get-go. So we're gonna say to label, and we're gonna equal Q label, and we're gonna say this is what happened? I think I changed something. Alright, there we go. 1 0 0. Okay. Alright, let's just see how this look from the get-go. It might not look well, but we want to just test that it runs. So we're going to do the usual. We're going to have our app. That would be our Q application. So app equal Q application, and we're going to do our sysarg, and we're going to create an instance of our form, and we're going to show the form, and then we will have our sysexit. So same as we did in the previous videos, nothing new here. Alright, so just let us see if this actually runs. No attribute get data. Oh, because we haven't created the method for this yet, so we're getting an error that there's nothing called get data. So let's just comment those two out and go ahead and run it, and we just have a window here. Alright, the reason why you're not seeing the combo boxes or anything is because we haven't added a layout as yet. So there's no parent widget, you would say, to have these spin boxes and combo boxes there. But we have a window, so we'll go ahead and do the rest of the program. Alright. Okay. Alright, so the next thing we'd want to do is to create that layout. So how we're gonna do this now? The last time we used we used a Q we use a vertical layout using the QV box layout. This time we're going to use something called a grid layout. So the grid layout basically lets us something like a boxes. So if we have, say, 3 columns and 3 rows, then what would happen is that you can specify in which block you want the widget to be, and I'll show you that right now actually. So let's say we have grid equal q grid layout, and we're gonna add our widgets to this. So we're gonna say grid dot add widget, and we're gonna add the date label widget. Oh, so it's okay. Hold on. So we're gonna add our date label widget, and we're gonna set it to 0 and 0. So this simply means that it's gonna go into the first column and the first row, which if this, all right, let's bring, all right, that won't work. All right, so let's say this is our grid, then that would go into the topmost left. All right, so the topmost left corner. Okay, so that's for 0 0, and then we're gonna add the other widget, which would be our combo box, the from combo box. I'm going to say add widget. I'm going to say self dot from combo box, and we're going to add it to 1 row down and still in the first column. And we're going to add our other widget. So grid dot add widget, and we're gonna add our from spin box, and it's gonna be in that same row, but it's gonna be 1 column over. And the next thing we're gonna add is our to combo box. Let's go ahead and let's add widget, and it would be your self dot to combo box, and this would be in the row below that row, but in the first column. And we'll go ahead and add our label. So that's where we get our answers from, and we'll say self dot to label, and this will be in that same row but 1 column over, and we're just gonna set the active layout, which would be our grid. I'm gonna say self dot set layout, and this will be our grid. Okay, so we can go ahead and see how that looks, but would have to comment this out again since we don't have our, as a matter of fact, let's just make our get data method right now, but we can put just a pass in there. So let's show you that. So we'll say define get data yourself, and we just pass, right? Just so we don't have to comment this out again. Let's see if it runs. Okay, so perfect. So we see that we have our grid layout. So we have our grid A layout here. So as we say, the from combo box, which would be at position 0 0, would be this box here. So first column first row, first column. And then we have our spin box, which is this box here, which would be in that same, yeah, it'll be in that same, well, the from box is in 1 1. Forget that there's a date. There's actually a date widget right here. So the date would come here. So it's in 1, and 0, which means it's in the second row, because remember that we start from 0. So 1 would mean that's the second row and the first column. And the from spin box is in the second row, but the second column, which is in the 1, 1. And same for the other two. So because we set our layout now, that's why we're actually seeing these widgets in our dialog. All right. So let's move on. Okay. So the next thing we are gonna want to do is we are going to want to get the file from the website in order to manipulate it. All right. So the website that we'll be using for this is the Bank of Canada website, right? There's all there'll be a link in the description for the website. Well, let's see if we can go to it right now. Of Canada. All right, so it'll be the Bank of Canada.ca/rates/exchange /daily-exchange.rates, and you should be on a page like this. And we'll want the CSV file, because that's the file we'll be manipulating. So if we right click on this file and we copy the link address, then that's what we'll be using when we are ready to get that data. But let's set up the get data method right now. All right. So first thing we're gonna do is to we need a dictionary of the currencies. So let's say self, and we call this currency code, and we can basically see I did download one of these files. Let's see if I can find it. All right, should be on the desktop. All right, yeah. All right, so this is how the CSV file actually looks, the one that we download. So at the top of the file, it has your terms and condition and so forth and so forth, things that we won't be using, right? And then we come here and we have something called the ID, which is what we'll be using for our codes. So the two important columns right here are the ID and the description, because the ID is what is used where the rates actually are. So we basically have to match these to these, but because we want the user to actually see the actual name of the currency, then we're going to need these names here. But as you see, it says Australian dollar to Canadian dollar and Brazilian real to Canadian dollar. We're only going to need the string before the to. So we'll only need, say in this case, Australian dollar and so forth. So we're going to have to put in, we're going to have to code basically some small algorithm in order to really manipulate this file here. Okay, so you see there's a lot of data, but really and truly we don't need all this data here. So we're gonna write our code in order to get the useful data. Alright, so let's go ahead and do just that. So again, we're gonna need a dictionary of the codes matching to the name of the currency. So we'll just create a empty dictionary first, and we're gonna use our try block, and we're gonna start off saying the date is unknown. Okay, and we're gonna get our file. So we're gonna say file equal, and remember our URL open, and we're gonna paste that link from the Bank of Canada website, right? And we don't need the start date here. Okay, so we just need that. All right, good. And then we're going to create a what we call a file handler, because we're going to basically put all the data from this file into a list so that we can further manipulate this file. So we're going to create a empty list. Okay. Then we're going to go through this file, and we're going to take each line of each line, like in this case, each row. We're going to go through each row and add the row to a list. All right, so how we do that is by using the for loop. We're going to say for row in file. We're going to say file handler, because we're going to append it to the file handler. Say append, and we're going to say row dot decode. And the reason why we're using decode in this situation is that when we download this file from the website, it actually oh, forgot our quote. It actually sends the file in bytes, so it's not in string. So when we decode, we actually decode it to the UTF -8 format. All right, so that's why we decode in this situation. All right, so let's go ahead, and we are going to, let's see, let's just print no to see what we're actually getting. Wait, all right, we'll need our except. So except, I'm gonna say exception as E, and for now we'll just print E. So E will tell us what kind of error we're getting or what kind of exception. And then we're going to use our finally suite to close the file. So the connection that we have to the website, we're going to always close it even if we don't have an exception. So remember, the finally block would always run whether we stay in our try or we reach our exception. Okay, so let's see what we get. All right, so this is the list that we created. So it's a list of all the data that is in the file, and we can actually check how many rows there are. We can print where we are. We can print the length of this. So we can say print length of file handler. And if we run this, let's close this and run, then we should see that we have 260 lines or 260 rows. All right, so that should show us that we actually got the file from the website. All right, so let's go ahead and write the rest of the code. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is to the next thing we'll do here is, let's look at the file. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is to add the name of the currency, and then we're gonna match it to the code of the currency. So we're gonna match this with this. All right, so how we'll go ahead and do that is to say we'll say, all right, for row in file handler if the row starts with fx. So we're saying if the row here starts with a fx, so this will show us that we're at our code section, then we are going to split that line. So we're gonna say alright, we're gonna say line equal row dot split, and we're gonna split it by the comma, because since this is a CSV file, that simply means that each one of these are basically split with a comma, so it's comma separated file, right? Or comma separated values. So in Excel, it will just have like columns and rows, but if we look at it in a node file, you will see that there are actually a lot of commas. All right, we're going to split it by the comma, and we're going to say the currency equal line 2 dot split and we're going to split it by the 2, and I'll show you why we did that in a second. All right, so what we did here is we're trying to get the currency name. All right, so what I mean by that is that remember that here it says Australian dollar, Brazilian real, but it say Australian dollar to Canadian. We only want what it says before the two word here. So that's why we're splitting it again. So we split it and we take the first value, which would mean we'll take it from the beginning after the values are split. And from that, we're gonna further modify this to say the currency, and we want from whatever is from the second string upward. So what happened is that when we get this code, and let me show you in Python. Okay, up here. Alright, you see that once we reach our currencies, is that the name of the currency actually comes with a double quote, right? So when we strip it or split it, we get something like this, but we don't want this. We don't want the first quotation mark right here. So that's why we start from the second character, which would mean that we start from the character after the quotation mark. So that's simply what we did here, right? And then in the currency list, we are going to say, let's see. Okay, so we're going to basically append these to the dictionary or enter these into the dictionary. So we're going to say currency code, and we're going to use whatever occurs, and we're going to use the title method. So what this would do, it would capitalize each letter of each word, the first letters of each word. All right, so we're going to say title, and we're going to say equal to the line at 0. All right, and we're going to say else. So if the row doesn't start with a fx, we're going to simply continue. Okay, and then after all this, we will print the currency code just to see if we are on track. So let's go ahead and run this. And we should see what we have here. So you see Australian dollar and it's matched with its right code. Same thing with the Brazilian and it's matched with its right code. So we are pretty much on track here. All right. So the next thing we're going to want to do, if we look at the file, is that we're going to, this is the rates area. So we're going to want to come here. We're going to want to get the column that the rates are in. So we're going to basically have a list with all these headers right here, right? Because we're going to use the location of the header to know the rate that matches that currency. So let's do that just now. All right. So we're going to have a empty header list. So header list. I'm going to have an empty one. And let's see. All right, let's use, we're going to use a while loop. So we'll say not found equal true. So we're going to search until we find, the row starting with date. All right. So we're going to say not found is true. And we're going to initialize a x because we're going to use this to basically go through the list. All right. So we're going to say while not found. And we're going to say if file handler and whichever we are at, so the position. So we start off at 0 because we're basically going through this list right now. So this would be 0, then this would be 1, and so forth. So we iterate through the list, and we say if that row starts with a date, so we're looking if that row starts with the word date. All right. And then we're going to say header. So we're going to have a new variable. We're going to say header equal file handler. And we're going to say x, so whichever position we're at. And we're going to split it by the commas. All right, so we're going to split. Again, we're going to split each one of these by commas. Remember that these are actually comma separated values, right? So while we're seeing lines going through them, in a plain text file, you would actually see the commas going through them. So that's why we use the comma to split the file. All right, so the next part of it is that we're going to go through each one of the header. We're going to go through each one of these, what we call in the right here we split the headers, so we split each column. So we're just going to go through each one and add it to the header list. All right. Okay, we're going to say for column in header, we're going to say header list, and we're going to append it. So append, we're going to append the column, and we're going to strip it. The reason why we're stripping it is because in some cases, as you will see, we have some like new lines characters, and we don't want to add that to the new list. So we want to strip it of these new line characters or any space. All right, so that's the reason there. Okay, and then once we find that, we're going to set the not found to false. So this will break the loop. Because you see, as we say, we have while not found, and it's already true. So once we set it to false, then that will break the loop. And then we're going to say if this row was not found, we're just going to increment the value of x. Right? Okay. and we're just gonna simply print the header list. So print, and we're gonna print the header list. Okay, so this should work fine. No errors. What is it saying? Okay, so we don't have any errors, so let's go ahead and run it. Alright, so perfect. So you can see this is the last list that we print, which is the header list, and we see that it splits all the headers here. And remember, the nice thing about a list is that it keeps its position. So if this is date and we call this again, then this is also going to be date in that first spot. Alright, so then we can go ahead and actually start getting our data. Alright, so to get the data, we are going to need to reach this point right below the date. So these are all the data we need. It comes with the date when this currency, with these currency exchange rates, and then the rate of each currency matching with the Canadian dollars, right? So we will go ahead by creating an empty data list. So that's an empty data list. And we're going to say for row in file handler. And we are going to start from where the last row we iterate over. So basically, remember we had a value of x, and whichever row it found the date. So say for example, it found the date at row 40. So x would be 40 in this instance. Well, in our program, it would be 39 since we start at 0. But in any case, say it's 40, and we're just going to start from the row below 40. So in this case, we say x, and we search for everything after that, right, up to the end. So we'll say if row that starts with and a new line, so if it has the new line character, then we're gonna break. So that's simply saying, let's close this. That's simply saying once we reach here, because this would be a new line character where this empty slot is, because you see there's no other empty slot between the dates. So once we reach here, then we'll break out of that loop, and we'll basically keep the last, so we'll keep the last row that we have as our row that we're going to use to pull the data, right? So we're going to say if row starts with that, we're going to break, right? And we're going to then say else data equal row dot split, and we're going to split it again by the comma. Okay, so we basically just assign the whole row, splitting it to the list. So that's the list that we're going to use to basically attach it to a dictionary with the currency codes. All right, so let's just print that data just to always ensure that we are on track. So let's print data and let's run this. Okay, you can see that it actually prints the date, which is the 19th. So let's check if that's right. Well, yeah, this is a file I downloaded before. So the new date would actually be the 19th of October. So that would be yesterday's currency. So although we have 18 here, on the new file, because I downloaded this before, on the new file we'll actually have 19. So it's a on this date, these are all the exchange rates for the respective currency. All right, so we are doing good so far. All right, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is to create the other dictionary and match the currency rate and the date with the date column and the currency codes. All right, so how we go about doing that is that we are going to iterate over this list. So we're going to basically initialize I to 0, and we're going to say self dot rates equal and a empty dictionary. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and say for d in data, we're going to actually go through and put them into headers. So we're going to actually do that, go and put them into headers. In this case, we're going to say the header, and we're going to use the join method. So we're going to say the empty quotation, add the join, and we're going to basically split the list again. So whatever we have in our header list, we're going to add it to a string now. So how we do that is to say the string of the header list, and whichever position that we're at in the list, will add that to header. All right. Okay. So we're gonna add these now to the rates. So we're gonna say self.rates, and we're gonna say header equal d dot strip. Okay, and again, the reason why we strip this is just so in the case that it has a new line character or a space character, then we'll just get rid of that before adding it. All right, so let's see if this makes sense. We have our self rates, and we say for D in data, so the data is basically these data right here, and we're gonna say header equal whatever we're at in the header list. So our header list is up here, and we basically take a string of the header list, and yeah, we're basically turning this into a string. So this and this, we turn it to a string, and then the rates that we have is based on self rates. Yeah, so right here we're just adding it to the dictionary. So we had add the name of the rate. So in this case we say the thing is Australian dollar, and we'll add the 0.9821 to that. All right, so again, after each one we'll just increase the value of I by 1. All right, and let's go ahead again and print the rates. So self dot rates, and let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so you can see actually work. So we have the date equal to the actual date. So date, we have the Australian dollar being the 0.921. We can actually check that with our file. So the date is here, and the Australian dollar would be here. So yesterday it was, well, the 18th, it was 9787, and we see today it's 9821. So it actually went up a bit. So that's the beauty of currency rates. They go up and go down every day. All right, so Um, we see that it works, so we have our dictionary, so we are pretty much ready to wrap this part up. In that case, we are going to want our date, because remember that's what we want to return from this function. So the get data function, we're going to return the date from it, and we're going to put it into the label. So let's see what we can do here. Is to say self.date equals self rates. Remember the self rates has all the dictionary to values. So in this case, we're going to ask the dictionary to give us the value that has the key of a date. So when we ask for the date, it should give us this, right? And we are going to return, we're going to return exchange rate date. And we're going to put a string placeholder, and we're going to say date. All right. Let's see. Okay. And for an exception, we're going to add something to this. We're going to return failed to download and we're going to put the exception. Well, yeah, let's say failed to download, because we'll print the exception to the console. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. And we'll see that we actually got the date of the exchange rate here. So it's telling us that it's the 19th of October 2017. And with string manipulation, you can go ahead and change the format of this. So you can have it saying October, the actual word October 19, 2017. So you can do that by modifying this program, which after I finish with it, I'll be placing it into the description. All right. So I'll be uploading it to the GitHub and place it in the description. All right. So we pretty much have our data set here. Let's see. What else do we need to do? All right. So we need to put these into our init method, so we can access them from our calculation. So let's see what we need here. We need the currencies. So let's see. Let's put it here. So self.currencies, and it's gonna equal to a sorted list. So we're gonna say sorted and self dot currency code. So this is going to give us back all the keys. So remember that our currency code is this one here. This this dictionary here. So it's just going to create a list with all the keys in alphabetical order. Let's see. And from our combo box, we're going to want to enter these into it. So we're going to say self.combo box from and we're going to say dot add items, and we're going to add all the items from the currency list. So we're going to say self dot currencies. All right, and we're going to do the same for the to box. So we're going to say self dot to combo box dot add items, and we're going to add all of them from that said list. Okay, and let's run this, and it should populate it now. All right, so you see that we have all the Brazilian, whatever, the euro, and so forth. So we actually populated our drop downs with the keys of that dictionary. All right, so good so far. The next thing that we're going to want to do is to actually create a method in order to calculate the rates. So if we should say we put in um, a Australian to a euro, then it would actually give us the correct rate and it would update the window or the dialog. All right, so let's go ahead and create that here. So we're gonna say let's see. Mm, Hold on. Before we do that, let us create our connect let's create some connection between the events that would be happening and the function that we actually want to run. Okay, so our okay, let us create our calculation first. So we're gonna call this update UI. So every time this runs, then it's gonna basically refresh what is on our dialog. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and use our try block again. So we're gonna say try, we're gonna say to equal self dot to combo box, and we're gonna take the current text from it. Alright, so whatever text is in there at the moment, that's what we're gonna use to go through our list and find the code that we need. Alright, then we're gonna ask for the from, and we can't name the variable from like that, so we'd have to put a underscore because we know that from is actually a Python keyword. So we say from equals self dot from combo box dot current text. Right? Then we're gonna ask for the code. So the to code. So say we select Australian dollar, then it should give us this code here. So that's what we're gonna ask for. We're gonna say self dot currency codes, and we're gonna say the to. We're gonna do the same thing for the from code. So from code, I'm gonna say self dot currency code and from. Alright, and then the amount now. The amount is we're gonna take that code, so we're gonna take, say for example, the Australian to Canadian, and we're gonna bring back this here, right? So that's the amount. So we say to amount, and we're gonna use the decimal module, and we're gonna say self dot rates, and we're gonna put that in. So we're gonna say to code, and we're gonna say do the same thing for the from. So from amount equal decimal, and the same thing. So self dot rates, and we're gonna say from code. Okay, and then we're gonna have the amount. So this is basically um, what we have in our spin box. So say we, like, for example, we enter the 20 Australian dollars, then it should give us what that is in, say, Europe. So we say amount equal, then we use the same decimal, and we say self dot from spin box dot value. So we're taking the value from that. All right. So let's do our calculation. We say the amount equal, and we say from amount divided by 2 amount, and we multiply that by the amount. So simple calculation there, and we're gonna set this the label. We're gonna say self.to label, and we're gonna just say set text, and we are gonna say use a placeholder, and we're gonna do 0.02 float. So if we remember, this would give us a float, but it would have 2 decimal places, right? And we'll simply just put in the amount. All right. So if we go ahead and run this, nothing would happen since we haven't specified when this would actually run. So we're going to do it right now. All right. So to tell when this run, we're going to say every time, all right, before we code that in, we're going to say define get what is wrong? Line 47. Am I missing something? Self.to label. I don't think so. Oh, I'm missing a exception block. Okay, that's right. So we're gonna say except exception as E. So we'll put the exception into a variable again, and we'll just print E. Right? Okay. So we should go ahead and get something out of this. All right. So how this works? We're gonna say every time that the user changes the currency, or anytime the user changes the amount in the spin box, then this should be updated. So that's the events that those are the events that we're gonna use to change the value on our dialog. So let us go ahead and do just that. So we're gonna say self dot from combo box dot, and we're gonna say every time the current index change. So we're gonna say current index change. So that's the event that we're looking out for. We're gonna connect it with our function. So we're gonna connect it with the self dot update function, update UI function. All right, and we're gonna do the same thing for the to box. So we're gonna say self dot to combo box dot current index change, and we're gonna connect it to our self dot update UI, and we're gonna do that for the spin box also. Self dot spin box from spin box dot value change. So this one, the event what we're looking out for is that when the value change, we're gonna connect it to our self dot update UI. All right, and last but not least, we're gonna give our program a title. We're gonna say set window title, and we're gonna set the title to currency converter. All right, and I think we are good to go. Let's run this and see if everything works. All right, so we have a Australian dollar, and if we should say Australian to euro, we see that 1 Australian dollar gives us 66 cents euro, and if we should increase this, say we got 150, then that's equivalent to 99 euro and 73 cents. So it's actually working. One thing that you would notice is that we don't have the Canadian dollar here, and that's because if you look at our file, everything is basically set to $1 Canadian, so you won't see it in the list here. So if we want to add that, we would actually manually add it to our dictionaries. So for example, let's see where we could do that. Let's see, we would add it, say, to our currency codes. So we have a currency code here. For row in file handler. Alright, I think we can go ahead and add it right here. So we can say Canadian dollar, and we can give it a code of FX CAD to CAD. Alright, and then we can go ahead and find the rate, so self rates, and we'll add that same FX CAD. Oh, sure. So FX CAD, and we'll give it a rate of $1. Alright, so this should work. So let's go ahead and run it. And we see that now we have our Canadian dollar. So whatever it is to euro, and if we should put in 500, we get 338.50. And we can even compare our program to that of XE. So this is a very known currency exchange rate site. And if we should use the same thing here, so we're going to say Canadian to euro, and we're going to type in 500 and run it. And we see that we get 336.21 euro, and in our program we get 338.50. This would be more updated. So for this one, you would actually be getting the rate as it is now. Remember, this we're using the rate of yesterday. So, but it should be pretty close in other way. So let's check the Indonesian 500 to euro, and we see that we get 0.3. And if we should use our program to do that, so Indonesian, we see we get 0.03. So it's pretty accurate, but won't be as accurate as these side again, because these side are using up to date on the hour, on the minute rates. So, but we have a pretty decent currency converter that we can use. We can go ahead again and add more functionality to this, like in our previous program, we actually have the history. So you can basically add a history, and all the currency that you previously searched for, you can basically save it into a text browser. So I hope you learned a lot. We went through a lot today. It's a small program, but it has taken up the most lines so far. So again, if anything is confusing, and I would expect part of it to be in some cases, you can just ask in the comment section, and we'll get that answer for you. So again, I'll leave the link to this file in the description, and if you can match it with your code if something is going wrong. Alright, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.